lighting works. Yeah, that light behind me is going to be too bright.
That one or the
Yeah, for sure.
the one over the wood stove or the
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, no good. Well, actually, the one right above me too is it's lighting up my hair. No, that one's got to be off.
well, you gotta have a light on. So
Well, yeah, but the one in that one there. I mean, if this one was loosened up, it would be all right. That looks all right. Before I was making my hair light up. Looks like I had electric hair. Anyway, we're a little early, and appreciate somebody waiting and already giving us a thumbs up. You should tell me who you are.
YouTube and Mike Finn.
Mike Finn. All right, one of our favorite people. Good evening, BGA. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Is it about that time? I don't want to wait too long. Is it
Well, you could talk about
8 o'clock?
stuff.
Okay.
You talk
Well, I'm Mark, and I'm coming to you from Baker's Green Acres. It's a 80-acre farm in northern Michigan, and me and my family have been farming this piece of ground for just about 15 years. We took up the plow here in 2004 when we moved here from Montana after I retired from the United States Air Force. And we were not farmers. We had a 13-acre farm in Montana that was sort of, I don't know, I don't like to use the word hobby farm too much, but it was just a place to get started. You know, we got our teeth cut on that. You know, we had chickens to start with, and then we got a couple of pigs and fed them out, and then we got, you know, so on and so on. Had some goats out there. Did a little milking out there of goats, and enough to get the fever and know that it was something that really turned us on. You know, really felt like you're doing the right thing. I was originally in the aviation business, and that's something that I still really like, but I don't want to live near a major airport, that's for sure. And I think I had enough of it. So we came here and with the idea that we would be farmers, and didn't really know where to start exactly. We knew how to raise chickens, and we knew how to butcher chickens then. I knew how to butcher a pig back then. We had some feeder steers at our last place, but we never had any cows. And I'd never actually butchered one. We were not really great produce people. We'd had a garden before. So, you know, there was a lot of things that we hadn't done. That's my point. And when we got here, we were looking for a place to fit in, and I got a hold of one of Joel Salatin's books. This was back in 05 is when I got it. And it was about pastured poultry. So I got into that, and I started doing business with restaurants and retail stores. I sold some to a distribution outfit for a while. And that was going pretty good. At one time, we had 30 chicken tractors, and we were butchering a lot of chickens every week. And we actually had people working for us back then, paid people, not just our kids. So let's see. And that went on for a while, and then we started getting into pigs again. We got into the Mangalitsa pig, and we were one of the first farms in the United States to do that. They were imported from Austria. We got to train under some people by the name of Wiesner that came over from Austria, and trained under them 3 times, exactly 3 times. And they don't come to the States anymore. Too bad, because I would really like to train under them some more, because I learned a lot of things about butchering and processing the Mangalitsa pig. Very different than American pigs. It's a Hungarian pig called a heritage pig. It's red meat, very white fat, and they do very well on forage, living outside on pasture. They do really well. It's very well suited for the north where I am, but they also do very well in the south in hot climates too. I'm told. I wouldn't know because I don't live in a hot climate. I live in northern lower Michigan, and it's pretty chilly here. Not as chilly as the upper peninsula, but still pretty cool. We get a lot of snow, and the pigs do well in this environment. We've really had good luck with them. We've learned a lot about planting forage crops, how to contain them, and then of course how to process them. So where we are now is we are no longer a commercial outfit because I hold no licenses with the state or the United States. So I cannot do business with restaurants, retail stores, can't even go to a farmer's market. That's okay, because those markets are not great anyway. When you go to those markets, especially restaurants and retail stores, you're competing with industrial agriculture, and so you're up against, very inexpensive food. And although people do want quality food, when you put 59 cents up against $4, it's pretty difficult for people to see it. So it's better to just have a database of people and maintain a CSA model, and we sell directly to our customers, not to a middle person. A restaurant would be a middleman. So it's going well, but I think we're more of a homestead now. Before, when we were commercial, because we had to narrow our margins down, we had to do way more of a couple things. Now we can do a lot more of a lot more things and sell less pieces to still make the same bottom line. And what we've found is we didn't want to be raising 20,000 chickens a year and just be chicken farmers. We didn't want to do that. We wanted to conduct this as an experiment and discovery, and be able to teach our kids a lot of different things and experience different things ourselves. So this model is much better. And I think the direction that we're being taken is teaching, and we are going to be doing our 9th Homestead Hog Harvest class this coming weekend. All right, so it's going to be the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. This will be our 9th one. All right, here at Baker's Green Acres. Of course, we do them on the road, and then the weekend before last, we were in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and we did the exact same class at Shady Grove Farm. Buddy of mine, Randy Buechler, owns that farm. Randy and Libby Buechler, and we did the class up there, and we had a very full class. This class we got coming up, I have 1 seat open. I had a guy punk out on me, and I had not taken a deposit off of him. Sadly, never do that. Always take deposit. Okay. I'm getting the shush from my assistant over here. So I'll tell you who's with me here. Jill's with me, and she's manning the laptop computer. And the reason for that is so she can weed out questions that are not pertinent to our conversation here. So I'd like to talk about things having to do with homesteading, small farming. We can even talk about industrial ag. I don't do it, but I'm around it and I see some of it and people have questions about it and I know a little bit about it. Homesteading really is my thing now. That's the direction that I'm going, and I feel like a good thing to do would be to pass on as much of it as I possibly can, and that's the reason for the class. I mean, for the call-in show. I would like to be able to stop during the course of the day and take a phone call from all of you, but I really can't. I mean, I just can't. It's there's too much stuff to talk about. And this is a way where if you have a question, you can ask the question. And then there's many, many people. I don't know about our view counter. It appears as though our view counter is not accurate. We really don't know. We really have no idea. This could be going out to 10 million people right now, and I would have no way of knowing. All right. We can talk about some of the legalities of homesteading and doing business without licenses from your state. It is definitely doable. And we can talk about anything that you want to talk about, actually, because we usually do. I'm just going to request that when you have a question, please put it in all caps. If you feel that there's a question that's not pertinent to what we're talking about, but you want to ask it, Jill will get it, and if she may pass it to me, she may not. We can definitely keep questions for, next week and the week after. When questions come in during the week, Jill hangs on to them, and then usually I'll start off with some of those questions. But we don't have any right now,
I've got one.
or do we? Well, we don't have any old questions.
No.
So how is the lighting? We tried to tweak this a little bit. Okay, let me get this shirt off. I am currently in the what we call the great room here in our house. We have a pretty small house. It was a pretty old, beat up old farmhouse, and we're in the process of getting it fixed up now. I got to do this before I get too old, but I just built a couple weeks ago. I finished up this project. I built that stone hearth. I guess you can't see it too good with the lights out. And then last weekend we put in a sliding glass door there that I got at a secondhand store. It was in excellent shape, and we've been wanting to do it for a while. And it just really makes this room nice because it lets in so much light. This room actually used to be a garage. And when we needed more room, we kind of pushed through into the garage. We used to kid around and say that concrete is very durable because the floor was concrete for quite a few years. Now it's insulated, it's wood, and it's really taken shape. I'm glad we stuck with it. I did have a question from a person that I know that I'm pretty sure doesn't listen to this cast. And it was about, she was upset when she found out that a lot of people that are homesteading actually have income from off farm, and wanted to know if it was, and so I think I ought to address that because I think it was a pretty good question. There's many of us that, are not exactly in our 20s, that this is sort of like a second career. Like in my case, it definitely is because I retired from the Air Force in '04. So it's sort of a second career, and I have income from that. But we do make pretty good income from the farm, and we do make pretty good income from our classes. We make pretty good income from our puppies, which I have 2 puppies left. So the thing about homesteading is when you run a farm, and it took a long time for me to really understand this very well. My wife did, but I didn't. There's many different sources of income coming into a farm. All right, so your homestead, your farmstead, your farm can be set up so that you're ready for the opportunities that come, And then you find that opportunities come with the seasons, and they come with the ebbs and flows of societal changes, right? That's a good way to put it. And if you can field those, then you just wait. You wait until the opportunities come, and then you take them. We have found that one of the best things that we have going on this farm is the ability to process animals, whether it's poultry or the four-legged kind, any of them. So if somebody winds up with something that they don't want, something that they got for a season, decided they didn't want it, and then they want to just move it along. If you can process animals, that's very good.
Like sheep?
Like sheep, because we did get some sheep, and we didn't really want the sheep, but we did take the sheep, and so now we've been feeding the sheep all summer, and it's time to make sheepdogs out of them. So I think in your farmsteading progression, you need to look at, okay, what is out there that I can turn into a stream of income? And try not to think with your heart. Try to think with your head, because your heart might say, I want to raise rainbow ponies. But your head will say, that's stupid. There's no such thing as rainbow ponies, right? So raise something that people use. Pastured poultry is excellent. You don't need much space. And the next thing you want to learn from how to raise pastured poultry is how to process pastured poultry. Can you do that as the homesteader? You sure can. Can you do it legally? You sure can. So that's an example. Like if you're going to raise, let's say, steers, for instance, you have a lot of grassland. You pay a butcher, 40 to 50 cents per pound hanging weight to process that. So let's say it's a 2,000 pound animal. That's going to be some serious coin. If you can do it, you're paying yourself to do it. That's an example. I could go on and on and on about that. It's kind of called vertical integration, where you know how everything works on your farmstead, and you try to get rid of the stuff that you don't know how it works. And so if you're going to get something, you have to think to yourself, can I fix that? Will that turn a gain on the farm? You have to think about that. So if you're going to set up a little butcher shop, you need a knife. You need some way to maintain the knife, a sharpening stone. You might need a saw. You might need a 22 rifle. Then you have to learn how to shoot it if you don't know how. So there's all these steps, and that's kind of what the Homestead Hog Harvest is. It's a course of instruction for the average person to be able to get a pig from standing on the ground to fare that's suitable for the freezer and suitable for your plate. And then we go a little further because we don't want to waste anything. So we talk about organ meats. We talk about everything, including the squeal of that pig. We go through everything. It's a 3-day class. If somebody wants to make that class this Friday, somebody can pull it together. I'll make you a deal. Because I'd like to fill the class. I'd like to have 9 participants to the class. But if not, we can do it with 8. That's okay. This is a class where we're starting with live pigs and we're winding up making sausages on day 3. So it's and what you learn is applicable to many other things on the homestead, believe it or not. I mean, it might be a different species, but it's still that process. All right, today, for instance, I needed something for my processing operation, and I needed a big table that once a pig was scalded, you could lay it on this table and you could scrape the hair off it, but it's got to be heavy. It's got to be a heavy table because some of our pigs are 350 pounds, these ones that we're doing this weekend. So it's got to be heavy, and it can't be a solid table because we are dipping the pig in scalding water and then pulling it out and then pulling the hair off and scraping it off. And if it's a solid table, then that has a tendency to set the hair. So it has to be like rails that the pig could be on. Well, I couldn't find anything like that. They don't have that at Home Depot. So I had to build it. And I am a scrounger, and I've been a scrounger my whole life. And so I had the materials here. They were not just materials laying there. It was a swing set that somebody had made a long time ago that I scrounged, and it was made out of heavy pipe. And so I was able to cut it up and, engineer it so I was able to put it together. Plus I had the legs off of an old grinder. You'll have to come to the class and see it. But I got it together today, got it all welded together, and I think it's going to work really nice. So, where was I going with that? I mean, the nice thing about doing a class or a call-in like this is you get to review what you're doing with your life. And I wish it says that there's 14 people. I wish you were all here right at my kitchen table and we could talk about this. This is what I find fun in life to do this. So maybe I should get to some questions, Mrs. B. All right.
All right. Nate has 2 questions here, and I'm gonna give you the one that he just asked first.
Okay, Nate.
So reverse order.
All right.
He lives in Plymouth, Mass. Has more freezing temperatures than snow. Any ideas on how to keep water from freezing? He's feeding pigs and chickens, watering pigs and chickens.
Oh yeah, I'm from Shrewsbury, by the way, Massachusetts.
Every once in a while he talks like it.
Yeah. If you came to our class before long, there is actually a guy coming from Martha's Vineyard. A guy is coming to the class Friday. I'm looking forward to seeing him. Keeping water from freezing. In the summertime, you're putting water down and your animals are going to it when they feel like it. In the wintertime, let's go back and let's say it was during the time you're on Plymouth, right? Probably near Plymouth Rock. How would the settlers have done it? Okay, they would have had buckets that they would probably scoop up snow and bring it into their cabin or wigwam or whatever they were living in and let it warm up and liquefy, and then they would go out and give it to their animals. I think that we feel like we're a little bit more civilized than that, so we'll run an extension cord out and we'll put a heat pad down so that our chickens can get water whenever they want it. Well, I think we're being pretty nice to the chickens by doing that. And if we're homesteading, your scorecard of how you're doing is if you're making a gain, and that could be dollars. It could be favor, if you're going to school and you leave an egg on your teacher's desk and she gives you a better mark or something you got to make a gain. So your chickens probably aren't going to lay in the wintertime anyway. So I think you could just water them once a day. So if it was me and I was going to do that, actually, this is what we do. We have buckets that are about like this, and you see them at Tractor Supply, and they're rubber buckets, right? And we have several of them. So whoever's doing chickens stops at a heated building, which happens to be the butcher shop because we have water in there and we have hot water in there, and that person will take a bucket and put warm water in it, take it out, give it to the chickens. They'll come out of their house, they'll drink some water, and then that person will pick that other bucket up that froze during the night and bring that into the butcher shop. So in the morning, it'll be water, not ice. So we call it the 2-bucket system. We don't call it anything. That's just how I tell them to do it. And that works pretty well. The other way to do it is if you have a water trough out there, they make the same rubber troughs, and that trough you can just turn it over. The one we have is like maybe about that deep and about that big around. It's an oval, and the kid will just take a bucket of water out there, turn that thing over, step on it, and then move it over to another place and put water in it. And they only get water once a day. That's really all they need, because they're not really doing a whole lot of laying in the winter anyway. And, you're not going to hear this on any good chat rooms, I don't think, but chickens will eat snow. They will eat snow. So that's what I would do. What was the other animal? Was it pigs?
Pigs.
All right.
No, it doesn't get snow.
You don't get snow in Plymouth, huh? No snow in Plymouth.
No,
I didn't know that.
Not much.
Well, pigs will definitely eat snow. There's no doubt about it. But people on the internet get pretty feisty about that when I say that. But I've got Mangalitsa pigs, and we started giving them water in the beginning, and they would just get wet. They would just play in it, and we never saw them drink. And then we would see them eating snow all the time. So we stopped giving them water in the wintertime, and this is going on 2008 when we started with Mangalitsa. And we get a lot of snow here, and they just eat snow. The cattle do the same thing, although I do water them because we're milking them, and they have to work really hard to take in that much water. And for my cows anyway, I have a really big trough, and I do keep an element in there. It's called a bird bath heater. It's just this little donut about this big that you plug it in. And this is a 275 gallon water trough, and it keeps it open all winter long. Maybe it'll crust over on the top, but it's right in the area where I milk anyway. So I go out and I break it in the morning while I'm standing around there watching the cow get milked. So pigs, they're kind of messy and they turn stuff over, but I think you could find that same rubberized trough and haul water out to them once a day. Another thing you can do is you can soak their feed, so their feed is moist, and then they're eating it and getting hydrated at the same time. Next question, please.
Alrighty. I'll give you Nate's other question.
All right, Nate.
It was a butchering one. What's the smoothest, most efficient way to process a few chickens? 25, maybe 30 or less.
That's where we started, processing chickens.
Yep.
I would not bother with getting any equipment right off. Find out if you like it, if you're willing to do it. See, the difference between a good homesteader or a successful homesteader and an unsuccessful homesteader is the successful homesteader is willing to do what the unsuccessful homesteader is not willing to do. Now, do I like butchering chickens? No, I don't. But I surely don't like writing a check to somebody who's going to do something that I could do myself. And I don't want to pay somebody to do what I can do or what I can direct my children to do. So what you're going to want to do is get a scalding pot. And a scalding pot can be something that you can put water in and get a fire under, whether it's a propane fire or a wood fire. And for a scalding pot, you could, there's so many things you could use. You could even use a 50-gallon drum and cut it off halfway, or a third of the way. It doesn't need to be that deep, maybe a foot deep. and then set that up on something, a couple cinder blocks, get a fire going underneath it, and then get you a thermometer. And you're going to want to get that water up to 150 degrees. Now, when you have fire going underneath it, it's going to keep going up or it's going to go down. So the more water you have in that, the more accumulation of heat and the slower the up and down it's going to be. And then what we used to do before we had the setup that we have now, and I'll tell you what we have now in a minute, we used to take two sawhorses, and I would set a pipe across those sawhorses, about an 8-foot chunk of pipe. And then on that pipe, I would put lanyards out of what we call 550 cord. In the military, it's that nylon cord. What do they call it? They sell that every place. Well, it's 550 cord is what it is. That's what we use. But you could use any kind of, stout string or cord and make lanyards. So there's a loop on there and kind of a loop that will cinch down. Got a piece of cord around here so I could show them anything. No, I don't know. But we're not down in my shop. I could show you. But you know how to make you make a loop on the end, sort of like a hangman's noose, and then you bring the other end around through it. So it's kind of hard to explain.
Here.
All right. Well, all right. You tie it like this. All right. You get one of those going, and then you take the other end and go through it like that. So then when you put a chicken's foot through there, and this end is tied to the pipe and only leave like 4 inches or 6 inches or so, you put 2 of them on per station, and then you scald your chicken up and down in 150 degree water until, for about a minute, and then bring it over and put it on there, one lanyard on each leg, and then you sit down on a white bucket, right? Upside down, of course. And then your wife would be sitting across from you, right? And then Junior would be here and Juniorette would be over here. So you could have 2 stations, and then you can talk about all kinds of fun things as you're pulling feathers off. And it's fun. It goes really quick. At first, it's a little tedious, but when you get used to it, you can whip right through them. So for 25 chickens, I wouldn't bother with any kind of processing equipment. Now here's what we have, what we use. For scalding, instead of having a fire going under it or a propane flame, we have a commercial scalder, and it's 4 feet long and 2 feet deep, at the top, and then it's probably about 36 inches deep. So there's a lot of water in it, and we can dunk in 10 birds at a time off of an apparatus that I built that we call the trapeze, and it's got a rail above it, and there's a block and tackle that lowers it down, because 10 chickens, if they're 5 pounds a piece, that's a lot of weight, right? But you can do that, and then we can pull them back out with the rope, and then we bring it over to a plucker, which is a big barrel with all these fingers. You can see them online, and then it's got an electric motor on the bottom. And this one is a commercial grade one, and it'll do 20 at a time, but we only usually do about 8 at a time, 7 or 8 at a time, just because we're kind of limited right now. But I am expanding that, and they come out clean as a whistle. But one of our facets of income stream is we do custom processing for other people that live in about 100-mile radius of us. They bring their chickens to us. We dedicate 1 day a week, which is a Friday. We require that they bring them the day before, and they have to pick them up the day we do them, Friday at 5 o'clock. So, I mean, we've been doing this a long time, and sometimes we'll do, a couple hundred in a day. And so it's one of the things we do to provide an income stream. I wouldn't want to butcher chickens 5 days a week. No way. Uh, if there was that many people that you could do it, it would be pretty good income, but I still wouldn't want to do it. 1 day a week is enough. Okay, so ours is set up to do that. It's set up that way because we used to do quite a few of our own when we were commercial farming, or what I call commercial farming, when we had licenses to do business with restaurants and distribution outfits and all that stuff. But I don't have any of that anymore. Don't want it. So that's probably what I would do if I was you. What's that guy's name? The guy, Nate. That's what I would do. And if you're just going to be doing them for your home, you figure if you eat a chicken a week or 2 chickens a week, that's not many. That's 100 birds. And you could do them in the summertime. You could do 2 groups of 50 or 4 groups of 25 or whatever you want to do. And if you do decide to get some processing equipment and you can come across it cheap, you set yourself up a little place and then put a tag up at Tractor Supply, and before you know it, you can make some pretty decent extra money, doing them on Saturdays if you got a regular job. I'm not advocating anybody quitting their day job. Not at all. In homesteading, you are creating all the food that you would need for your home. So let's say that you were thinking about getting a part-time job. It's an excellent part-time job, because what you're buying at the store, you're going to just create. And as you're creating it, you're going to learn a bunch of things, and you'd be surprised how much of your own food that you can grow. I don't think we ate anything tonight that wasn't grown on this front. Well, there was rice. We don't grow rice.
And frozen peas.
And frozen peas.
I broke down and got frozen peas.
I like frozen peas though.
Yeah.
All right. Is there another question?
Yeah. This guy's in deep East Texas. What can I expect to pay for a young pair of Mangalitsa pigs if I want to get a breeding pair?
A breeding pair of Mangalitsa. He wants to know what he's going to pay for them. Mangalitsa to the United States is all over the place. What happens, or what I've seen happen, is people want to believe that there's a silver bullet for something like farming. And I saw this when I was stationed out in Montana. We were going past a place that had a bunch of ostriches out in the front yard. And so we stopped, and the guy says to us, I said, how much are these ostriches? And the guy says, breeding pair, $10,000. He says, but this pair will produce about 12 eggs a year. And I was no genius, but I thought, 12 eggs. And each one of them is worth $5,000. But that's provided you can find some sucker to buy them. That's what it is. So that's what they've kind of done with Mangalitsa. It's like Mangalitsa, it's the greatest pig in the world, and the prices were really high, and people were charging outrageous prices for them, and then they would never sell them. And somebody who had never done pigs before, when they were forced to sell a baby pig for $50, and it's a Mangalitsa, and they paid for their breeding pair, they paid $3,000 for the breeding pair. They feel as though they're just giving them away. And a lot of them say, well, the heck with this, and they just give them away. They get out of them. So if you're wanting to get into Mangalitsas, I would say you look around for somebody that got into them with stars in their eyes, and then didn't know how to build fences, didn't realize that pig food costs money, and then the first round, they couldn't sell any of them. You find somebody like that, and you can do you can get them at a realistic price. I sell wiener pigs for right around $100 a piece. Sometimes more, sometimes less. And it all depends on how many of them I have and who wants what. You know, if I can get more for them, I mean, I'm here to make a profit. I will. But if I have more than I need and I need them to go, then I'll let them go cheaper. I'll call people and say, hey, I can let these go for this much because they start costing you. Right now, I don't have any, but when I sell breeding stock, I mean, especially when you're selling them right around your home, you're selling something to somebody that they are going to compete with you on. Here's an example. I sold some of my dogs. We raise Great Pyrenees guardian dogs. And these people who bought dogs from us, I'm sure realized that, hey, they're selling those dogs for $500 a piece and they get 10 of them in a litter. Whoa. And now 3 people that we've sold to around us that I know of have bred their dogs. And one of them bought 2 dogs from me and she bred them both. So, you know, it's kind of, you know, we kind of ruined our own market around here, but there's not much you can do about that. But in pigs, you know, you want to sell something that's a breedable animal for more than you would just a feeder. And a feeder would be something that's been castrated or neutered in some way. You know, with female pigs, it's a little bit more tricky than it is with males. We castrate males all the time, but females, it's a little trickier. And you got to really know what you're doing because you're going inside of them and you're pulling these little tubes out and clipping them. And it can get hairy. And don't ask me how to do it because I don't know, because I don't do it. So I can't really give you a dollar price. I think that you're going to want to get the best animal that you can for your money. And then I would need to ask you questions like, what are you planning to do with them? Because a lot of people that put out the money for breeding stock from, you know, guys that have papers and lineage and all that stuff, they're putting out big bucks. And so they're thinking, in order to recoup this, I've got to do the same thing that this guy did. And I've got to find a bunch of people that will pay, you know, serious money for breeding stock. And that can be kind of tough. So I think the best way is to buy feeder pigs at first and see if you can get some crossbreds because they're a lot cheaper, and feed them out and see if you even want to raise pigs. Before you do that, you should learn how to build fences, because if you don't know how to build fences, we sold some pigs to a lady that lived around here. Her and her husband, they're gone now. But she couldn't wait to get our pigs. And then she got 2 of them, brought them home. She brought them back 2 weeks later. They had been gone. All right, because they didn't really build fences. They kind of thought that the pigs were just going to stay around. So they made something out of pallets, and, you know, they put up some ribbons and stuff so the pigs would know not to cross it. And pigs were gone, and they couldn't catch them. They were older folks, and these were just little pigs. And when she brought them back, oh man, she was just wild-eyed that the pigs were so hard to catch. And then they wound up getting standard pigs. I don't know how they kept them in, but they're not around anymore anyway.
So what would be a range that
the
a
range
person could expect?
Feeder pigs around $100, 75 to 150. It just depends who you're dealing with for feeders. And breeding stock, I would say about $400 to $500.
All the
for
way
them.
up to
All the way up to a
thousand.
couple thousand.
Right.
But I don't know. I wouldn't pay it. I'd wait around. I'd look. I'm advocating for homesteading though. And homesteading, I would just assume you just raise pigs for you and your friends and your family. So if you did get some breedable animals and they weren't, you know, if they didn't have pedigree papers and stuff, I wouldn't worry about it. I wouldn't worry about it anyway, because once you get the clothes off of them, they all look the same. That's what I'm here to tell you. Anything that's got Mangalitsa blood in it, it's a very, very dominant gene, and we have blondes, we have swallow bellies here. We mix them, comes out with a brindle, but once you get them scalded and scraped, you cannot tell the difference between them, and we butcher them too. And people will tell you that, oh yeah, well, I'm a blonde guy or I'm a swallow belly guy. Let me tell you something. I've butchered near 1,000 of these animals, and you once the clothes are off, you cannot tell the difference between them. Okay, and eating wise, no difference. I've got a picture around here of a carcass that we did the other day. Maybe I can show it on my phone. Anyway, but give me the next question and maybe I can find this. I don't know how well this would work, but these are the pigs, one of the pigs that we did up in the UP, the Upper Peninsula. And let's see if I can find it and hold it up. If it's big enough, you'll be able to see it while I'm taking the next question. There it is. I don't know how that's going to work. Yeah, it looks pretty good.
Well, maybe we'll hop on live this weekend and just show some carcasses while we're doing the class.
Yeah.
Be kind of fun.
You see, the meat on that is really, really red. And the back fat is really thick. This was about 5 inches of back fat on this. And snow white. I mean, they were beautiful, beautiful carcasses. And these pigs were a little over 2 years old. All right, so there's a lot of sustenance right here. And if a person is willing to learn what to do, if you take it to a butcher, they're into piecework. They want to whip it through. And if you haven't noticed, people aren't really into fat. So a lot of the fat just goes in the trash can, but you don't want to do that. If you want to start talking about Mangalitsas and how to feed them and how to feed them for the most use out of them, then we can talk about that. You'll have to ask the question. No, I won't.
How much shelter do my pigs need for the winter? Mangalitsas.
Where's he at? We don't know where you are. Okay, well,
it's
I'll
expecting snow like here in Michigan.
okay. Well, I'm in northern Michigan. We get a lot of snow. We get, I don't know, sometimes 3-4 feet of snow per year. I think we get 200 inches of snow. Do we?
I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe I know where I used to be in. Anyway, we get a lot of snow, and some of the snowstorms are up to a couple of feet. I have shelters for my pigs. Do they use them? The answer is no, they don't. Not all of them. I have a field over here. No, you can't really, and the shelter that I have there is made out of an old oil tank, a really, really big one. It was 10 feet across, 10 feet in diameter, and we cut that in half. So it's like a half pipe. And I think it's the sections that we used were 10 feet long. We set them up on railroad ties, spiked down, staked really deep. I mean, this is made for big pigs because pigs move stuff around. And this thing hasn't moved an inch since we put it in. The pigs go in there more in the summertime than they do in the wintertime. So when there's a nice snow out there, snowfall, they would just as soon lay in the snow, and it insulates them and they're perfectly fine. Then they would go into a shelter where it's a dirt floor, sometimes we definitely put bedding in there, but they like it outside. I made a video, it would have been last year, and I went out to my grow area. And if you want to watch my videos, they're on this channel. They're on, or you can go to the Baker's Green Acres Facebook page, and all the videos are there. And I think that video is there. And I went out and I said, the pigs are gone. There's no pigs out here in this field. Well, we had gotten 2 feet of snow. You could not see a pig out there. Then I saw a little movement. And as I walked over there, I pulled my camera out, or my phone, and a pig head comes up. And then they all jump up and they all go running around the field. But they just laid in the snow, and then it snowed over them. And I'm sure that they were just as warm as they could be in there, because they have this thick coat of fur, and it's like where we're butchering now in the fall, the inner fur gets kind of kinky and tight and very soft, but the outer fur, the guard hairs, get longer, and it just fills right in those guard hairs. So to answer your question, I think shelter is far more necessary in the summer than it is in the winter, because in the summer they're dealing with the sun. And for summertime here, it gets pretty hot here for a while. I just make sure there's water on the ground all the time, and they have a wallow. They have a place to get out of the sun and get in the water, and then they have a shelter to go in to get out of the sun. There have been times where it's gotten bad, and I have pigs on a field where there is no shelter, and I have pulled my big truck in there just so they can get in the shade of it. So yeah,
They promptly took all the wiring
They took
out.
the wiring off of it, and they pulled a brake line off too. Kind of destructive, those little buggers. But yeah, they don't need a whole lot of shelter. Mangalitsas just don't. That's the reality of it. They don't really need it. Bedding. I got bedding out there now because it's raining and it's cold. And they sleep on it, but they're definitely not distressed. When it gets vicious cold, I go out to see how they're doing, and they just look at me like just another day. They're not stressed out. Heat is a different story. Okay. Thanks for the thumbs up, you guys. It really makes a difference. And if we could share this around too, there's other people that might want to come in on a show like this. That'd be nice.
Any questions up there?
And any questions? If you have more questions, let's get them coming. We still have
about
good 10 minutes to go. Do you have one?
Yeah, Jared was wondering, what about other pig breeds for the homestead?
Okay, I'm live again. Okay, so we disconnected, and now we're reconnected. All right, the question was, what other breeds of pigs? Because there's none around. The guy's name is Jared. Did I get that right? Okay, sounds like a new guy. New question from a new guy. Well, if you live in the continental United States, you couldn't have to drive too far to find one. If you don't want to go through that, the heritage breeds, you can do a Google search of heritage breeds of pigs, and it will come up with, I think there's 126 of them. The ones I know of are the large black, red wattle, Mangalitsa, and those are the only ones I've had any direct
of the heritage breeds
that I've had any direct experience with, that I can talk about them. They've all been good. I could have any kind of pig I want here on this farm, and I can find them. I've got a pretty good network. I can find anything I want. I'm staying with the Mangalitsa. I mean, it is a superb Homestead pig. Now, some of the problems that you'll hear about Mangalitsa is, well, they take too long to grow. I know there's this one guy that says that all the time, and he scares people off on that. But one of the things that we preach about homesteading is if you get a pig that will eat bark and make good quality pork out of it, well, there's tons of stuff around that your pigs will eat. You don't really want a pig. You don't want a pig that you've got to get commercial feed for in order to get it to be, big. I feed my pigs hay, um, bread, acorns, uh, chicken heads and feet, um, apples, apple squeezings. I don't feed any
Pumpkins.
pumpkins. Some of the things I don't feed, but I would is from breweries, spent grains. I don't, just because I got enough of what I have that I don't buy any feed for my pigs. Um, so if you get a Mangalitsa, you can feed them anything. They'll eat hay. They'll actually eat straw. We feed them straw. I mean, we put it in for bedding, but they eat it. So I would look around and see if you can find one of the heritage breeds. But if you can't, and you just have to get farm pigs, well, you got to do what you got to do, and then see what you can get them to eat. One thing, it sounds like you're new to this: do not use hog chow. In hog chow, there's a component known as hog concentrate. Hog concentrate. You do not want to use that. That is made out of other pigs, out of the huge slaughterhouses. Anything that they can't put in a can of Spam, they dry it, pulverize it, and then they're feeding it back to the pigs. You don't want that, because there's stuff in there you just do not want on your farm. I'm a big anti-vaccination guy. I do not vaccinate my animals. They're not sick. Why should I vaccinate them? And I wished I hadn't vaccinated myself, but
You weren't going to argue with the Air Force.
yeah, Air Force said, here you go, you'll love it. But that's before we knew anything about it. Now, when you look into vaccinations, you see that, it's just another scam to make everybody cough up some bucks for something. And I mean, if you want to vaccinate, go ahead, but don't, you can't make me vaccinate if I don't want to.
So any breed would work on a homestead.
Yeah.
It's just if you can get easy keepers, you're going to have an easier time of it.
Yeah. And, if you get standard farm pigs, which are basically pigs that have come out of confinement operations, they are bred to be lean, but they also really only do very good if they're given the really hot hog chow. So if you go to like a 4-H deal, you'll see these pigs that look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, because that's how they judge them. They don't want a fat pig. The picture of the pig that I showed you had a lot of fat on it. You got to know how to use the fat. But just about everything that we do when we're cooking, we're going to use shortening in it. So why are we using fat made from canola when we could be using fat made from pig lard that, oh, by the way, is compatible with the human body? And canola, how's that compatible with the human body? Your body gets a little canola, and it's like, what do we do with this? I know, let's store it on our hips. Not good. Not good. Pig fat is good stuff so long as they're fed properly. If they're fed garbage, and I don't mean garbage. I don't mean like garbage from a restaurant. Actually, garbage from a restaurant would be good for them, but if they're fed, genetically modified corn and soy with hog concentrate in there, you don't want to smell it, never mind to eat it, right? And that's about all I have to say about that, because I can really go off on that.
So a mutt pig would be better than a pink pig.
Yeah, a mutt would
Absolutely.
definitely be better. Yeah.
Even when we were raising white pigs, anything other than a white pig always performed better.
Always better. Yeah. That was true. Like a Duroc, we had really good luck with Durocs.
The black and
The Hamps, they were mean though. Remember?
Only when we put her in
Yeah.
confinement.
Yeah.
She was a good mom. She just didn't want to be boxed up.
Yeah.
That was how we learned about that.
I'm a big, anything heritage, I think, is going to be what you want in your homestead.
Yeah.
But, you know, you use what you can get your hands on, especially if you're new at it. Can't be too choosy. But I would say if you have a car, you could travel a little ways and you could probably find something good. Come out to Michigan.
Come visit. This is Nathan. He's in, I think it was Southeast Michigan, Romeo.
Okay.
Herd pigs can get sick easily in colder weather, especially younger pigs. Have I just heard wrong info? True, not true?
A lot of times, Nathan, when you buy pigs, you may not be getting healthy pigs. And when their life is complicated with stress of extreme cold, it can be hard on them, right? And so if they are compromised when you get them, extreme cold weather can really be hard on them. But I don't think a healthy pig. So our pigs are definitely healthy. There's no doubt about it. We farrow. That's when we have baby pigs. We farrowed in February, and the conditions were not good, and all the babies made it. Of course, we've had times where they haven't. I actually made a video of that one time, but that is a very small percentage. Most of the time, they're fine. Pigs are not like a puppy, for instance. They don't need heat lamps and things like that. They just need to be able to get up close to their mom. And what you want to do, I mean, I'm really against heat lamps because we've had people that have burned buildings down. You just want to go with deep bedding if you're going to be outside, like let's say you're going to be outside in a hut or something like that. Deep bed them with straw, not hay, straw. You could go and you could watch a bunch of our videos about Mangalitsa farrowing and how we did it. And we have pretty good luck with it, even in the wintertime. Summertime, they'll flop down right in the middle of a pasture and a bunch of weeds and have their babies. And in a short time, they're running around. So, no, I don't think they'll necessarily. I mean, it's definitely more challenging when it's really cold, but it's not something to where, I mean, I know a lot of times wiener pigs are really cheap this time of year because people don't want to fool around with them in the wintertime because watering is so complicated and all that. But that's not really true. I mean, this time of the year is when you can actually find little pigs really cheap because people just want to get rid of them. So I wouldn't pass until spring because then in the spring everybody wants them and you can't find them.
Yeah. And as long as they have good ventilation and they can get dry.
Yeah. Good ventilation, get dry.
Okay.
Yeah, they should be fine.
Yeah. Better than sticking them in a barn with a heat lamp. Then you're asking for trouble.
Put a heat lamp in a barn. Heat lamps, it's conspiracy, I tell you. The heat lamp manufacturers are in cahoots with the brand new barn manufacturers. I'm almost sure of it because a lot of people burn their barns down. No, I don't know that for a fact, but they're definitely dangerous. And a lot of people will put them in barns and let them run all night long while you're sleeping and your pigs are running around and knocking those things around. And you have bedding in there. I mean, you can have a whale of a fire quick. And we have a friend that did, so. Do you have another question? I saw one came in. I couldn't read it, but.
Yeah. This is from Robert.
Yes, Robert?
I have a gilt that we exposed to a proven boar when she was 14 months old. They were together 6 weeks, but she never took. Should I send her to Copeland, or is this common for virgins?
Well, what I'm picking up from that conversation, you waited until she was 14 months. Is that what he said? 14
Yeah.
months? Uh, I know the books say that they need to be 13 months old, and you'll access that on the internet. People say 13 months old, you know. That is an age that they use when they're doing commercial pigging, all right? And those sows will be on a very strict diet to keep them uh, not fat, all right? But I would reckon your 14-month-old was fat. And a lot of times fat sows don't they don't take. So, I mean, obviously she didn't take, so it's one of the two of them. Um, he was with her for a month. Is that what he said?
6 weeks.
6 weeks.
Because our boar was too big and fat.
Yeah, I got a boar problem right now, and
So-
he's just too.
He's
I
too-
really like him, but I've watched closely, and he just can't quite get the key in the ignition, if you know what I mean. Because he's just, he's big. He's big, and he's old too. Well,
Yeah. So maybe
maybe you should.
slim
Maybe
her
you
down.
should.
Try a different.
Yeah, I
boar,
mean, if you
or
have plenty of pork in the freezer, you could. But slimming down a pig can be difficult if she's used to a lot of calories. I wonder what you're feeding. I would like to know what you're feeding it. If you're feeding a hog grower,
pretty hefty, probably around 275.
is it a
at 14
Mangalitsa?
at
Is it a
14
Mangalitsa?
months. He didn't say. But she's pretty big.
She's pretty
for
big.
14 months.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you know, you've got options. Jill's saying slimmer down.
yeah.
That can be difficult.
But even at that, remember Red never caught.
Red, yeah, she never caught.
She was fat.
Red machine, yeah.
Yeah, mangoes.
Yeah, sounds like too fat.
Should be tasty.
But I'm going through my memory banks and seeing, like, we had that happen early on with the blondes that were here, and all of a sudden they just caught. And that was what everybody was thinking, was they're too fat.
But they've been stunted.
They've been
so
stunted.
They were just,
But you know, there was another thing. For a while, we were buying corn silage to feed our pigs, and our farrowing rate really went down because there is glyphosate, which is Roundup, that is right on that corn silage. And then we started seeing things inside of them that we hadn't seen before, so we quit using it. So if you're using GMO feed, that might be an issue. It's pretty tough for me to sit here and tell you what to do. I'm just telling you, these are some of the things. 14 months, you know, you're going to get your money back out of her for sure. Even if you make her into sausage, she'll give you.
She'll be tasty.
But if you were going to do that, I would take her all the way out to like 350, and then you're going to get way more than a 275-pound pig. I like Mangalitsa's big. I really do.
She gets 3 pounds of organic grain mixed with a half gallon of goat whey, dairy, plus produce weekly.
Huh. This almost sounds,
Yeah, sounds like she needs to just go to freezer camp.
well, Jill's vote
Maybe.
is freezer camp. I don't know. She should have taken by now. 6 weeks. We went through 2 estresses she should have taken. So we've ruled out the feed situation.
Unless it's like Manny's situation and she just doesn't like the boar.
She just doesn't like him. We had a boar that we had to take back from a guy because the sows that he had would not let him mount her.
She didn't like him.
She didn't like him, and he started getting mean. And by the time we had him in our trailer. We stopped at a rest stop on the way home, and I swear people thought we had some sort of monster in there because he was big, and boy, did he make a lot of noise. But then I got him home here, put him in with a bunch of our girls, and he went right to it. He mellowed right out. Was just a real nice guy. Sold him to a guy that picked him up in a minivan. No
Yeah,
joke.
that was a fun.
No joke.
But that was after he was no longer frustrated.
Yeah, that's after he was mellowed out.
Right.
He'd been getting some.
Robert says her name is Guanciale, by the way.
Guanciale. Well, there you go. You know what you're going to do with her. This is a perfect time of year to do a harvest because, as you probably know by now, in the fall time, the animal is preparing its body for winter. So the fat is migrating into the muscles. And so your guanciale will have a lot of nice intermuscular fat in it, and it will make excellent guanciale. For those of you that don't know what guanciale is, that's when you make a cured product out of the jowls. And so she's probably got some pretty good jowls. I'd up her feed intake for everything you got, and then look into getting some different breeding animals.
909, I'm out of questions.
9:09, and we are out of questions. Thanks a lot, everybody, for coming. I guess we'll see you next week. Jill says that we're going to do a little bit of live streaming, and we will post that on Baker's Green Acres
Well, we can
Facebook.
We can
Okay,
live
we'll do it
stream
on here. We'll do it on
We'll
here.
see how it goes. When live stream gets a little dicey, but
All right, we'll live stream some
We'll try.
from the hog harvest class that we're doing. And that is going to start Friday at about noon is when people get here after lunch. And then we try to do our first kill by about 1:30, 2 o'clock. We have enough people in the class to do 2 pigs. And yeah, we will do some live streaming. I would like it if everybody that comes to this was able to come to the class next year. And then we could talk over a lot of really good stuff. Processing of your animals, although it is uncomfortable, and you may be saying, well, I could never do that. I used to say the same thing. I had to have a friend of mine shoot my pigs. And my lovely wife here has never even killed a worm, right? So
not on purpose.
it's not something that everybody can do. But if you can step over that line, the world opens up to you as far as homesteading goes. Okay, because that's kind of where it's at. You know, animals are these groovy machines that you can feed hay to, and they'll make T-bone steaks out of them. Or, you know, you can give them, you know, junk bread, and they'll turn it into the best bacon there is on the whole planet, right? So it really is a good thing. And then my problem, honestly, I hope my butcher's not listening to this because we do use a butcher. Some of our stuff has to be USDA killed, right? And so I do have a butcher, and he's a great guy. But butchering is kind of, when it's done commercially, it's piecework, you know, and the more pieces you can do, right? So you've got employees on both sides of the table and they're just winging it, you know? And so we spend a lot of time, let's say, on a steer, 3-year-old steer, beautiful. Make sure he's getting grass all the time. And it's just tough for me to turn it over to somebody that's not going to really take as much care as I would. So that's why it's nice if you can do your own. And that's the point, is it's part of farming, and that's why we say anyone can farm. Good night now. Thanks for coming. See you next week.